Are mega camps legit or are they a scam? Should you go to them or are they a giant waste of time and money? Well, in this video, our head coach here at Next Play, Brian Overton, who has 15 years of Division I recruiting experience, and myself are going to break down mega camps, how they work, the whole process, and how you can actually take advantage of them in the recruiting process to secure offers, whether you've been to them before or you haven't. You're listening to the Football Scholarship Podcast, the playbook for parents and athletes who want to secure the best football scholarships possible. From securing a D1 football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss at just £5,700, myself, to helping 83% of the athletes I mentor achieve football scholarship offers and 42% going Division I. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me and my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of D1 college football recruiting experience, as we interview top experts, successful athletes, and discuss current recruiting trends. Together, we'll help you navigate the recruiting process so you too can achieve your dream of running out of that tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans. So Brian, let's just jump into what is a mega camp, just so everyone understands, right? Because there's so many different types of camps. There's skills camps, there's recruiting camps, there's indie camps, right, at individual colleges. There's mega camps. Like, just for all the parents and players watching right now, what is a mega camp?
Yeah, so a mega camp is typically held on a college campus because it has to be for at least Division I schools and FCS, and a lot of Division II and NAIA schools rules differ a little bit, but for the most part, it needs to be on a college campus for other schools to attend. So what happens is the host school essentially invites a bunch of, as many as they can get, other schools to come to the mega camp that they're hosting in an effort to get as many kids there as possible to evaluate for all the schools attending. You see some mega camps, some are bigger than others. Some have been around like a long time and have a history of doing it, so they can have upwards to 15, 20, 30 schools in attendance, where you'll have some smaller ones where they're trying to keep it more regional and get more kids there, and they may have 5 or 6 or 10. So it kind of varies, but the nuts and bolts of it is it's on a college campus, and it's where that school and that program invite other schools to come to their campus to evaluate all the kids that have signed up for the camp. Most of the time it's done because of regional recruiting. So, for instance, there's a school, and I don't want to promote their camp, so I just say there's a school in Texas that's been doing a mega camp for many years now, and obviously there's a lot of players in the state of Texas, a lot of good players in the state of Texas, so they hold a mega camp there, and they'll invite teams that are not in that region but do recruit that area. They'll have them come down to their mega camp in an effort to give them an opportunity to see as many Texas players as they can, because it's obviously easier for the kids in Texas to get to that camp versus going all the way out to theirs. And so they bring the schools essentially to them. So a lot of times it is like regionally oriented as far as like the mega camps go, but that's basically what they are.
Now, when you were at Arkansas, would you go to a camp like that?
It's a
Or
good
was that
question. A lot
more
of our,
when
a
you
lot of
were
our
like
parents ask.
FAU?
Yeah, a lot of our parents ask that question. So, and I think when we get into the pros and cons of it, this will make more sense. But it kind of runs right into what we teach in our program. But to answer your question, I wouldn't go, or I wouldn't send any coaches to any of those unless we were actively recruiting kids that were going to be there.
Like, you already had the relation. Like, yeah,
Correct.
Lane
So,
Kiffin's been sending guys to mega camps. Right?
correct. So if it's in an area that, you know what I mean, like say, we talk a lot about area coaches here, like, you know, if somebody was having a mega camp in one of my area coaches' area, and say we had 4 or 5 guys on our board from that area from different schools, and a handful of them were having trouble either financially or whatever the case may be of getting all the way out to us, I would send the area coach, and depending on how high he was on our board, I may even send the position coach out there. But we're going to watch 5 guys, and we know who they are, and we're just going to watch them work out, because logistically it's easier for us to just go to them and see all of them that we know we like, or at least interested in person, and then roll the dice and maybe get them to come out to our camp because of the travel logistics or finances or things like that won't allow it. So when you see these logos on these mega camps, understand that doesn't always necessarily mean there's going to be a coach there from that school.
That just means
Okay.
they've been there, and they could have
Well,
just been there, like Brian said, because of one kid that
yeah, they
was
could either
there.
be coming to do that, like watch an individual player or a handful of individual players, or sometimes even guys like pay for the information. So like if it's a school with a big budget, they'll send that camp $5,000 or something, to support their camp. It's almost like a sponsor almost. And in
Just to get the
turn,
list.
yeah, and in turn they'll get a list and some measurables, and maybe if they tape certain things like one on ones or indie or something like that, you know what I mean. So there's stuff like that involved too. So it doesn't always mean that like if you see a certain school's logo on there, one, they're very very rarely gonna have like a whole staff there, like ever. So I don't want you to think that there's gonna be like 9 coaches from that school there. That very rarely ever happens, if ever. There are a lot of moving parts behind that. But to answer your original question, yes, we did do that, but it was very targeted. We just weren't going to just show up and try to figure out who was the best player in 2,000 kids that day or whatever, 1,000 kids.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, like, because everyone wants to know like divisions, right? Like, first off, like, let's say you get evaluated by us, and we tell you, hey, right now you're a Division two FCS guy, or you're an NAI D2 guy right now, right? Like, it might be at a big school, but like, let's say that it's not their predominant way of recruiting. They already know who they're going after,
Yeah.
right? Like that stuff's already way predetermined. So, what divisions of coaches are at these camps?
So it varies.
Like
Like I
the
said, like
main
so
ones
some of the
that are like
bigger, yes,
serious about.
yeah. So some of the bigger ones like that, like I said, that have been doing it for a while, they'll still invite like FCS Division 2 schools to come, and so those coaches can get a ton out of it because they're not as targeted at that point as some of the bigger schools are, and they're not as far along down the line. So what they may do is, for instance, I know some schools do it this way, like even some of the NAIAs and Division 2s. And then I'll give you another example after I give you this one, but I'm talking about like one of the bigger ones that like a Power 4 school's hosting. If their need that year in their recruiting class, let's say on each side of the ball is like linebacker and wideout, right? They know
Hmm.
they know that's their biggest need, or it may be 3 or 4 positions. They may send those position coaches down to that camp just to watch that position and see if they can find somebody that stands out to them and that they like, that they can add to a list, or that they need to follow for their senior year, and keep up with them, that may be a guy down the road, or start building a relationship with them just at that position. So they'll send the wideout coach out there, and he's not worried about anybody else. He just watches the wideouts all day, and then he'll get his list, they give him of who signed up, and he'll just focus on the wideouts, and he'll start checking all boxes. Okay, let me go through the height and weight. Let me see if that stands out anywhere. Maybe highlight a guy with some height and weight that he likes, and then they run their times, and then he'll check their times. And any of the times stand out, and then he'll watch, the individual and the one-on-ones, and so they'll do it by position like that, by need of what they're going to have in that class coming up. So that's how some of the smaller divisions do it at those bigger ones. Now, they're not called this because they're smaller divisions, but it's the same concept. Like there's schools that host like smaller mega camps for like only NAIA Division 2 schools. Like we've had several kids go to those where that's all that was there. And it was huge for them because they were working out for schools that were at their talent level, and they got a lot of traction out of it. They even met coaches, whatever the case may be. It just happened to one of our 2027s. It wasn't in a mega camp scenario, but it was the same thing in that, they had a need for that year. They asked him to come out. He did all the stuff we asked him to do, reaching out, da 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 da, and based on what he did at the camp, they offered him. Well, it's no different, but the difference is they're going to the camp that is in their targeted division level. And so there are other ones out there that are not huge, where it's just a ton of Power 4 schools there and this, that, and other. They're just tailored to division, even Division 3, Division 2, NAIA, and they'll sprinkle in like some FCSs in there. So that's why we say just be very targeted on where you camp and how you camp. So, but
The
all
way
of
you
them,
get and the way you get targeted, Brian, is what division you're
yeah,
have
you
the
got to
best
know
chance of getting a
first.
scholarship in.
Yeah, you definitely got to know first.
So if
Um,
you want to get a professional evaluation to see where your son's at, highly suggest doing it. Whether you do it with us or you do it with someone else, I don't care, but do it. If you don't, you will waste so much of your time and money. We'll leave a link in the description below this video. If you're listening to this, you can just go to gonextplay.com and look at the evaluation. But you got to do it, right? Because like he just made a good point. One of our players knows he's at a Division II level right now. It doesn't mean he doesn't want to go to FCS. He's doing things to get better on his film to go FCS. But if he just sent all his film to G5 and FCS schools right now, they wouldn't respond back to him. They would have no interest in him, right? So we got to send it to schools that are in the right conference, the right division, and the right conferences in that division, depending on what level, right? And so we were able to guide this player to go to the right camp with the right coaches there, do outreach to those coaches beforehand, start relationships, use the camp as validation, and then get offered at the camp itself, right? And it's because of all these things. So if you're at a huge mega camp where it's just massive and there's thousands of kids, like the odds of you, like, I'm going to share with you some things you could do to still stand out, but the odds of that going well for you are very slim, right? If you're
Go buy a
listening to
lottery
this.
ticket.
If you're in the top 2,000 recruits out of 1.1 million, you should be there. Or here's a couple things, right? If you run a 4.340, you should go, right? If you are, 6'5", 300 pounds, and on one-on-ones, you're just going to be throwing, and not just 6'5", 300 pounds, and like you're just 6'5", 300, but you're 6'5", 300 trained, and you're just going to throw dudes around. Or you're on the D line, you're just going to throw guy like on one. If you're that, or you're 6'5" and you can jump 44 inches, and during one-on-ones, you're just going to jump over DBs, like. You're not gonna do anything to get yourself recruited. All right, that's what these coaches, especially at the FB, like that's what they're looking for. A guy they've never heard of that runs a 4.2. You know what I mean? That they could plop out. You know what I'm saying? You run a 4.6, you're a good player. You run a 4.5, like they don't care. You know what I'm saying? That's not gonna do anything for you. So this is a good point. Now we're gonna talk about what you could do to stand out if you're not that guy. But, I hear this all the time, Brian, right? Like, I went to this camp, I beat out all the 5-star and 4-star D1 recruits, and no coaches talk to me. And it's like, I hear that all the time. I know, because it's all the other things, right? And you're not what they're looking for right now. And people are like, oh, Richie, that's mean. It's like, I could be nice, and then you don't get a scholarship offer. Or I could tell you the truth and then help you get a scholarship offer. And then if you're getting a scholarship offer at a Division II or an FCS school, hey, that's awesome. You could still move up. Look at Ole Miss. They just signed a Division II quarterback. Like Lane Kiffin, offensive guru, signed a quarterback out of division, not FCS, not G5, straight from Division II to the SEC, right? So
I signed a
where
receiver.
you are,
I signed a D2 receiver 2 years ago. Just went in the third round.
yeah, Brian was at Arkansas, built their whole recruiting department, signed a receiver out of Division II, and he just was a third-round pick. So, guys, where you're at right now doesn't mean where you're going to end, right? Especially in today's world. So,
No.
anyways, I just don't want them to be like, oh, you're mean. It's like, it's not even mean. I just want you to be successful. I want you to win the game.
Let me tell you something. In this business, and I've been doing it a long time, and I've seen a lot of situations. I will tell you that gray area in recruiting is if that's where you live, i.e., people not telling you the truth or telling you what you want to hear, that is a dangerous place to live in recruiting. Gray area is a dangerous, dangerous place to live because your target's never going to be right if you live there in the gray area. And it's going to be all over the place, and it's going to be so frustrating. You're sitting there on signing day wondering what happened. I've just seen it happen too many times. And, a buddy of mine, he tweeted this the other day, and it was so true, and I thought it was so – it's not funny. It's actually sad a little bit, but he nailed it, man. He said, and it references mega camps probably a lot too, because they're usually at bigger schools and, things like that. But he said, it's a major problem when you come home from a mega camp and you've got more pictures than you got reps. And, that turns out to be the case a lot of the times because, the guys want to go, they take these pictures in their gear, had a great showed out at the mega camp, this, that, and you're the only one that knows you showed out. That's it. And you got it posted on X, and that's great. Right on. But In
I'm
reality,
laughing because I was that guy.
and you probably got 5 reps, the whole day. So
Right.
there's a lot that goes into it, guys, and there's huge pros and cons. But I would say if you're going to one and you haven't had any communication with any of the schools there, and I mean real communication, like they know you're coming type situation and have a good idea they've watched your tape and things like that, you're fighting an uphill battle, and that's just the reality of it. When you get
Unless
there.
you run a 4.2.
Yeah, I mean,
Unless
yeah.
you're going
If
to
you're gonna go out there and go crazy, you know what I mean, and by the way, like
but not just go
only
not you
like
can't
three
just go
guys.
crazy
Only
too,
for
though.
context, only like 3 guys ran a 4.2 at the NFL Combine this year. So, like unless you feel really, really good about like you're dang near the fastest guy in your state, or something like that. Yeah, I'm in. You know what I mean? Or like Richie said, if you walk out there and you just absolutely look different than everybody else, and you've got the meanness and the toughness and the leadership to match it. Yeah, there's a chance. I'm not saying there's no chance. I'm just saying you have a huge uphill battle.
If you're the parent of a high school football player who wants to earn a college football scholarship and your son is struggling with marketing himself or confidently communicating with college coaches, I wrote this book specifically for you. Inside it, I share exactly how I earned a Division I football scholarship in the SEC at just 5'7" and 150 pounds, without going to camps, being ranked, and without any connections. And right now, I'd like to give you a copy completely free. All I ask is that you just cover shipping. I'll drop a link in the description below so you can grab your copy before we run out.
So it really goes back to time allocation, right? So the question is, mega camp's a scam. Is mega camps good? It's like, it depends, right? Everybody's a little bit different. And so do you know the coaches that are going to be there? Are the coaches know you're going to be there? Do you have a relationship with them beforehand? Or are you a certain type of size type player that you'll just stick out like a sore thumb? There's context that matters in order to answer that question properly, right? And some kids it makes sense and some kids it doesn't. And it's about time allocation, right? Like, is it worth your time going to these camps versus doing outreach and getting your game film in front of more coaches and getting those coaches on the phone and then getting that coach and doing a visit with that coach? Lots of coaches versus just who's going to be at this camp who have no idea who you are, right? So it's like time allocation matters. What you're going to look like there matters. There's so many different things that matter. And so mega camps can be amazing, right? Mega camps can also be a giant waste of your time, right? And so I do want to just kind of walk through a little bit of like the process that we teach our athletes when it comes to standing out at these camps, right? And the first thing we always say is when you get to the camp, go straight up to the coach, right? Don't waste, just like when you go to the party, you go straight to the girl. You can't hesitate. You don't look confident if you don't do that. You got to go straight to the coach, introduce yourself. Ask in a simple question you can ask. You'll see the logo, right? Hey, coach, love that I see your coach. What position do you coach at Duke, right? Simple question that you could ask. Oh, cool. How long have you been there? Awesome. What are you here currently looking for in a receiver, whatever position you play, right? These are some lines of questionings that you go through to find out where that coach is. And then a simple question you could ask at the very, very end is, hey, coach, is it okay if I come and meet up with you after the camp just for 1 to 2 minutes to get some feedback from you? Coaches want to coach. So asking that question sets yourself up for after the camp, you ball out. Then you have an opportunity to speak with that coach after, get their feedback, and then ultimately get their contact information, get their phone number, and move that coach through your recruiting pipeline, right? So that's what you could do before. Like, I'm just saying, you're going to a camp, you don't know any coaches, you didn't do what we teach as far as, you don't watch my YouTube and do what we teach as far as booking a meeting before the camp, coaches know who you are, all that stuff. This is what you can do to begin to stand out. Walk up. Go to the coach. There's 30 coaches. Get to that camp early. I need you introducing yourself to every single coach you possibly can. All right. Then when you're on the field, you're going to look a little different. They're going to remember that, oh, this kid talked to me. I just did a podcast with a head Division II coach, and I'm excited to start releasing these podcasts. We've been doing podcasts with head coaches, and he was like, man, I was at a camp. There's like thousands of kids, 10 kids came and introduced themselves. This is a head Division II football coach ready to give out offers, right? So you could separate yourself before you even get on the field by just going, introduce yourself, having a legit conversation with confidence, and setting a meeting to go talk to that coach after the camp to get feedback, right? It's really that simple. That's effort, right? That's overcoming the fear of rejection. That's, it's effort. You know what I mean? Well, my kid's shy, he's introverted. Well, that's why we do what we do, right? Because every kid that comes to us is shy, they're introverted, they're not comfortable speaking with coaches, and we give them what to say. And then here's the kicker. We practice it with them and we role play with them over and over and over and over again. So they're confident. So they just get there, boom, go to talk to the coach. It's easy, right? It's hard when you don't practice it. You practice doing throws and drills and all this stuff on the field before you get into a game. But then you expect your marketing skills and your sales skills, you expect to just be a pro and go out and do it without any practice. You got to practice the business side too. So you practice this by knowing what to say and then role playing it. Practice, practice, practice. So I know, Brian, I'm kind of jacking this real quick, but you talk to the coach. Cool. Good. Now you got to make it stick, right? And you make it stick by playing well on the field, right? And you play well on the field by doing everything with intention. Everything you do is with intention, right? And what do I mean by that? I want you to be the best guy that you could possibly be at doing the warm-ups, at doing the high knees, at doing the butt kicks, at doing the stretch, be at the front of the lines. I want you to be all effort, right? And then when you get to individual, right, you're the best at doing the best you can be at doing the individuals. You're at the front of the lines, right? You're engaged, you're energized, right? You're doing your absolute best at every little thing. And here's where next play comes in. The most important play is the next play. Not 7-on-7, not the one-on-ones that you're going to be doing. It's the route in front of you. It's the drill in front of you. It's the individual right now, right? It's not, I got to talk to this coach after. That's why you talk to coaches before, so you don't have to worry about, I got to talk to this coach. I'm nervous. No. It's one play at a time. I'm just going to run the best route. Then when I'm done running the route, all I'm going to do is focus on catching the ball, right? One play at a time, just your next play. You don't have to worry about the whole camp and all the different drills. And when I get to one-on-ones, am I going to win them? If I get to 7-on-7, am I going to drop a pass? No, just do your best at the one thing in front of you right now. Then do the next thing, your best. The one thing in front. All effort, things that you can control, right? You can't control whether a coach is going to offer you, but you can control effort. You can control being in the front of the lines and being a leader and trying to make the camp a better place. All of those things are things you can control. So cool, you play, you ball out, you make it stick. Now, after you go back and you talk to that coach and you ask that coach for feedback, right? The coach gives you feedback, it's positive, cool. Coach, is there a possibility that I'm going to be on your board, on your recruit? Yeah, absolutely, cool. Boom, coach, what's your phone number? Not what's your X account, what's your handle. No, what's your phone number? The reason you go for the phone number is because this will tell you whether they're serious or not. If they're serious, they'll give you your phone number. If they're not, they're going to give you your X, all right? Now, it's not to say that coach might not continue to get serious for you, but right now they're not super serious, right? So that's why you always ask for the phone number, and you ask it with confidence. You can't go up to a girl, Brian, and say, hey, would it be okay if I get your phone number? They're not going to give it to you. But if you walk up and you have a great you talk to them before and you show them how good you are, and then at the end you have this great conversation and you're naturally like, hey, so what's your phone number? I'm excited to follow back up with you. I'm excited to continue the conversation. That coach is just going to naturally give you his phone number. So you got to ask it confidently. So guys, that's the steps if you don't know coaches on how to get attention on who you are, especially on the business side. You got to prove it on the field, of course. And then at the end of the camp to turn that initial attention and turn it into a conversation. And in some cases, if you're at an indie and you've been invited to the camp, this is more mega camp, but on an individual, if you've been invited to the camp and you go and you ball out and you prove everything that they saw on film, they'll just offer you right there on the spot at an indie camp, right? If you're going specifically to that college's camp. All right, we're talking about mega camps right now. So Brian, I might have missed some stuff there because I'm kind of going on a tangent with it a little bit. But did I miss anything? What do we want to add to that? What do we teach our players that because our guys
Yeah, on the side of it, that's what you have to do, what you just said, if you don't have any communication with any coaches. That's the only play you have at that point. Specifically, because we're talking about mega camps, specifically at mega camps. Because if you go to a mega camp and you haven't talked to any of the schools there, and don't really have any relationships, like their coaches walking around everywhere. Like I'd get there as early as possible and do what Richie just said. Like I'd run into many of them as I could, or we have our guys, even our guys when they do go and coaches know they're coming. We have them get there early and let the coach know they're getting there early so they can get some real time with them beforehand. Or the coach will say, just get here right at the start of registration, get in the front of the line so you can go ahead and get registered, and then they'll either go through the registration line with them, kind of walking and talking type thing, or they'll get them through registration and meet with them afterwards. But if you don't have any of that stuff going on, that is the play that Richie just gave, and it can sometimes work out for you. Again, I don't want anybody to think that we're saying that you have no shot of getting any traction or anything out of going to a mega camp. What I am simply saying is that if you have not had any conversations or don't have some sort of relationships with some coaches there from some schools that know you're coming, that is more of an uphill battle, and you need to take the strategy that he just gave into play and try to execute it with as many coaches as you possibly can before you leave.
Yeah. So again, it goes back to like, it depends, right? It depends on where you're at in the process, how many offers you currently have, what's the best use of your time, what does your game tape look like, what do you look like in comparison to that game tape, right? Were you injured the year before? There's so many different factors that determine whether a mega camp is going to be worth your time or not, right? And so I hope that we kind of laid out here, like, not only what to do to turn traction, but also give you some context as to whether it's worth it or not for you, right? Everyone's in a little bit of a different scenario. And so I wish it was a little bit more cut and dry, but it's just not the reality of recruiting at all. Recruiting isn't cut and dry because every school is different. Every coach is different. Every program is ran differently. Every program recruits differently, right? And so nothing's black and white in recruiting.
But that's why we give our guys a very pointed strategy, because we know their situation, we know who we're targeting, what we're targeting, and we know what kind of player they are. So it's a more detailed plan. So we're not guessing quite as much because we know the kid very well, we know the family very well, we know his talent level, we know who we're targeting, all those things. So that cleans it up some, and it's still not cut and dry, but it is a more targeted approach.
Yeah. So again, I wish it was a little bit more cut dry, but that's why we do what we do, Brian, I guess, because we're able to look at all of those factors I just laid out and then create a camp schedule based on that. One thing I do want to mention is if your strategy is only camps, like, you're really shooting yourself in the foot, right? The reason I say that is because I was chatting with a parent yesterday. Obviously, we weren't working with them, but they're only they're like, I'm like, so, we're talking about recruiting, and they're like, yeah, so we got our camps lined up, and I was like, well, what else? And they're like, yeah, we're just going to camps, and I was like, oh man, you're missing out on, like, obviously camps is one way, but then you're only limited to coaches at those camps, right? You got to be doing the outreach, you got to be doing the marketing on social media. It's a combination of everything. It's not just one thing. I say this a lot, but it's never just like, if you ever hear anybody in recruiting say all you have to do is like run, right? It's not all you have to do is outreach. All you have to do is post on social. All you have to do is go to camps. If you see all you have to do, just run, because it's not that. It's all of those things. And it depends what percentage of your time is going to be spent on those things depending on your situation. Did you play? What's your game film look like? What's your size? What's all those different factors that we look at, right? To be able to make a good decision on what's going to get you the most scholarship offers at the highest level possible. All right. So that's the context for that.
Yeah.
But anyways, listen, I think this is a really good conversation. I'm glad we had it, and I hope everyone listening got value from this. I really do, obviously. If you're interested in having us evaluate your son and look at his current situation and potentially even mentor him, if you're listening to this as a podcast, you just go to gonextplay.com. And if you are on YouTube and you got value from this video, consider subscribing and hit the bell notification. And if you're on a podcast platform, leave us a review with a question. We use those questions to come up with better podcast topics to continue to provide you value. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Scholarship Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And for more free resources, or if you're interested in working with us, visit gonextplay.com. Until next time.